You've reached Samaritans.
Hello. Hello. Irish Dutch. That's crazy.
We'll be with you as soon as we possibly can. Please stay on the line. We're here to offer you emotional support, whatever you're going through. There's a bit of a wait at the moment. A volunteer will be with you shortly. We're putting you through to a volunteer now.
Hi, can I help you?
Hello. My name is Howie.
Hello, Howie.
Hi.
Roz. How can I help today?
Please repeat your name slowly.
Roz.
Roz. Hi, Roz. Roz.
Hi.
I want to explain to you what happens when you deport the family of a brain-injured person because they are not allowed to defend themselves in a court of law.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to try. It's not easy.
All right.
So when you're brain injured, you are not allowed to have any kind of legal help anymore, again, in the United Kingdom, because of the Mental Capacity Act 2005 that specifies lawyers must have their clients assessed by a psychiatrist costing £2,000 at public expense or otherwise before they're allowed to take instructions. So therein lies a built-in delay in justice. Justice delayed is justice denied.
Right.
That's number one. Okay. Now we're moving on now. So the lawyers will not act for the client anymore. They will act for their paymasters in the government. And if in the government that there is a perception that looking after a disabled person's child is going to cost the public purse money, it is financially expedient to have that child deported if possible. So then it becomes the responsibility of somebody else's jurisdiction. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a general concept. Fine. Where have we got up to? Okay. Now that disabled person is told to leave their own country and go to somebody else's country. The child is deported to a country where they have no family and left homeless. They cannot come back to the UK because the social services and police will just break in again and take the child away again. So you've got a brain-injured person, their child is deported. Not only is the child deported, but the disabled parent is also deported because they have to travel to that overseas location to try to look after that child. But can you imagine if the disabled person cannot access the right care in their own country, how much more difficult will it be for them to try and access care in a foreign jurisdiction, especially with Brexit? Because Brexit will say to that disabled person, hey, get out of our country. You've been here for more than 3 months. You have no right to be here. We don't care if your child is here. That's not you. That's somebody else. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. Right. So that's just part of the general scheme of things. It's difficult for me, Ros, because I have a brain injury and I have to try and collate a lot of small pictures in my brain at the same time to build a picture for you. So we've started with the introduction, and now we're going to move into what's going on at the moment. Let me see how far I can get. Okay. Now,
I'm here. I'm listening.
So, the brain-injured person is not stupid to an extent, because they got their master's degree in law 5 years after their brain injury that took away their mental capacity. Right. Sorry, Ross. It's difficult for me to stay focused. I'm trying.
Okay, it's okay. Take your time. I can feel I can hear your anger. I can hear your passion.
There's no.
You're trying to process everything.
It's not an anger. It's a speech impediment caused by the brain injury. Word finding makes the muscles work too hard, so it sounds like somebody might be angry or shouting, but it's just a word finding neurological problem. Now, going on. So this disabled British person in their broken wheelchair, which is unsuitable for various reasons, which is another long story, has to travel around in a foreign country to try and look after their child. But they're having seizures all the time and keep losing their passport. It comes to a point after 4 years that the British person has lost more than 3 passports in 10 years and therefore is banned from having any more passports. So they have to try to find a way to get in and out of the UK without a passport. So they end up with a light aircraft crashing it and breaking their back. So now not only that they have already struggled in their wheelchair to begin with, now they have a broken back as well, making it even more difficult. And as well, the child then is raped, and the people looking after the child have previously told that disabled person, please take your child back to the UK, we don't want the child. And they can't do it because of their brain injury, because there's no support in the UK. And they don't want to have to go through the problems with the police and the social workers again, and the courts and whatever. We're nearly there. 2015, 16, 17. Right. So, right, here we are, next step. So, the disabled person does their research, and they tried very hard to be euthanized in various overseas jurisdictions where euthanasia is allowed, but they can't get the euthanasia because it's very difficult for them to prove that then no further treatment is possible. And one of the apart from having a wheelchair, the other issue is they need to have a guardian, and they can't get a guardian because the Court of Protection doesn't have disabled access. They found the guardian 3 years ago in a museum, and the guardian was seeing the disabled person for 3 years up until the 4th of June. The papers had been put in at the Court of Protection 2.5 years ago, but as the Court of Protection has no disabled access, they can't complete paperwork. So the guardian has a breakdown because they find it very difficult trying to look after a brain injured person if they're homeless and other problems. And even in a home it's too difficult because the seizures are very noisy and prevent the guardian from sleeping.
Right.
And the guardian finds it very embarrassing because the brain injured person can't put clothes on and goes outside naked, causing a disgrace, and doesn't bath, doesn't clean their teeth, and stinks, and has very loud noisy seizures in the night time, waking everybody up. Okay, other problems like that, things like that. Right. So on the 4th of June, the deputy disappears. Up until that point in time, they are looking after that brain injured person and trying to make sure they live a civilized life as possible, like inside a dwelling, which otherwise that brain injured person would not be capable of. So as the moment that guardian moves away, the brain injured person loses their grip on reality. That's civilized reality, the reality of living in a dwelling. So they go back onto the streets, which for them is completely normal. And because their wheelchair is falling apart and inadequate, they have to get a proper wheelchair built. And a proper outdoors wheelchair, indoors wheelchairs are fine because indoors there's not long distances to cover, so the wheelchair doesn't need to move with any kind of speed. But outdoors, there are long distances to cover. So in order to resolve the problems with the wheelchair not being able to cope with any kind of speed, they have to build a special wheelchair. And they've been building, they've been looking for this wheelchair for 20 years. And the process is very slow. And they have found some prototypes which have got good parts of them. They've made photographs of the design, taken them to welders, etc., etc. So their wheelchair is kind of half built. But the person building it could not complete the job because they had other obligations. Then they find a professional wheelchair builder who agrees to complete the job. But the problem is that disabled person lacks organizational skills and turns up with the wheelchair parts 10 o'clock at night outside the factory. Triggers the neighbour's silent alarm, or motion detector. The police are called, and then the police wake up the factory owner, the business partner of that disabled person, spend half an hour talking to them behind closed doors, and they come out and say, and they start berating the disabled person sitting in their wheelchair with their heavy wheelchair parts, and the wheelchair person says, "Oh, but I phoned up the factory at 4 p.m. and told them that I'm on my way, and that I didn't know what time I would get there, because the guy who he was collecting, the previous welder, metal worker, wasn't going to be ready till 8 p.m. and it took 2 hours to get to the other factory, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it's nearly midnight, and the business partner, the metal worker, says, "I'm not going to do business with you anymore. I'm not going to take those parts that you're holding." And then the police say, "Take your parts and get out of here. And by the way, we're going to fine you." They don't say why he's being fined, but that's what they say. So they send this guy off with a brain injury in his broken wheelchair in the middle of the night, and by 2 a.m. the buses have stopped running. He's stuck at a bus stop somewhere in the countryside, and lies down on the concrete in the cold, wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning, freezing, covered in dew, and then continues his way. He makes his way to a town and finds an old people's home for brain injured people, and speaks to the nurses, who have some degree of empathy, and they take possession of the parts, so he doesn't have to carry them anymore. So therefore, the brain injured person is now free of those heavy parts and can carry on. Has thinking, where can I get this wheelchair completed? I'm really struggling. And but the wheelchair person has an issue like this. First of all, they can't live in a dwelling. The rehabilitation doctor has prescribed an electric wheelchair for this person in 2019, 6 years ago. But the wheelchair person cannot take possession of the electric wheelchair because they haven't got a house and they haven't got electricity. And also they haven't got the mental capacity to deal with cases of aggression, altercation or confrontation. It causes them to have seizures. So already there is a very large debt built up with the bailiffs. Now, if the disabled person is put in a house with their guardian, the bailiffs will break in and steal all the guardian's property to pay for the debt. So if they can't get a dwelling, because the level of confrontation and problems that will be involved is too much. So the brain injured person is being pushed further and further towards a homeless existence. Because if they live in a dwelling, the problems will become too great, with the debt collectors breaking in and disturbing their guardian. Now, they have to deal with that fine that was issued on the 7th, they were told they would get fined on the 17th of June, and 17 to 26, 9 days later the fine is issued, and it gives them until the 7th of August to have the arguments about the fine put before the court, beyond which time the courts can't accept any more submissions from the people who've been fined. We're almost up to date here, Roz. So what I've been doing over the last week, since Sunday, so the fine was issued on the 26th of June. I got those papers 2 weeks ago. About a week later, because I couldn't open it and read it because it would cause me a seizure, I had to put it into AI. So AI obviously characterized it and tried to produce a response, but the response was wrong because the AI is not a human being, it's just like a word database and produces the wrong information. So slowly, the disabled persons had to read the fine notice, which they've been told not to do by their doctors because it would cause them to have a seizure.
Right.
So together with the AI, the brain-injured person has been trying to construct a letter to write to the fine people so that they won't fine him, they won't send the papers to the debt collector, so they will be put in a situation that allows them to live with their guardian and to have electricity for an electric wheelchair.
Okay.
The problem is this, is that there are the arguments, the minimum, there's a minimum. So the fine paper says there's a minimum set of data that they require. They want the person's name, their address, the fine number, and what are the arguments against not being fined? The grounds.
Yeah.
But the disabled person doesn't know why they're being fined. As far as they can work out, they're fined for delivering the wheelchair parts at the wrong time. But nobody's actually said that. But that's their perception.
Right.
Of course, that doesn't make sense, because how could it possibly be against the law to wait until a factory opens to deliver wheelchair parts? It doesn't sound like that doesn't sound like something illegal to you, does it?
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, exactly. Thank you. Next part. So, on the one hand, they have, and the brain-injured person has to say, when did you receive this fine notice? Or when did you become aware of it? And the problem is that a person who doesn't have mental capacity cannot be made aware of something if it causes them to have seizures. So the first argument from the AI is that the person who this fine has been directed to is still not aware that they have been fined. Even though I can talk to you about the existence of the fine, it doesn't mean that I've been served if I lack the mental capacity to process it.
Right.
So that's the first argument. Now, the thing is, there are other aspects of this fine that need to be dealt with. So, for example, costs. If there are costs involved, and the AI say that the police owe me £50,000 for the abuse that they put me through, when is the court expected to receive that information? Do they want to receive it now because the fine notice isn't asking for it? That's one aspect. And the other aspect is this. In the Second World War, this particular country deported more Jews per capita than any other country in Europe to the gas chambers. And the police were the main facilitators. So there is an argument that the police and the justice system haven't changed since 1945, and they are still persecuting disabled people. So the difficulty then comes in. Should one make one's lack of mental capacity and disability known to the justice system if that justice system has a history of persecuting disabled people? Because then it would be very dangerous to tell somebody you're disabled, because in that instance they would use that disability to persecute you even more, precisely in the way that my daughter was wrongly deported from the UK just because I'm disabled. Do you follow what I'm saying, Roz?
Yes, I am. I'm listening.
So I've got to the point here that I've got several problems. Firstly, I'm reluctant to tell the courts that I'm disabled in case they persecute disabled people, even though they've got a law that says that they have to help disabled people, because we also have a law in the UK, but it doesn't work like that. And the second thing is this, is that with the brain injury, I have to live in a parallel existence, which is completely alien to people such as yourself, the good people of Britain, because the good people of Britain live in dwellings, and then they have an idealized vision of the world around them, of the United Kingdom. And if a disabled person says they cannot live in a dwelling because they are too disabled, the good people of Britain will not believe it. They will just believe that's nonsense, because they believe wrongly that services are available to help them. However, the services are not available to help them. So that's why they have to live outdoors, away from people who will otherwise abuse them. The issue is this, is that when one writes one's letter to the court and tries to explain that one is disabled in a certain way, you have one argument is you shouldn't do that because the court can then persecute you. The second argument is that they could easily just equally believe that this is a fantasy delusion and that the person is not the way they described, and this is a deluded construct. Do you follow?
Yeah.
This is
I'm listening.
this is because a lot of psychiatrists have said that about me, that I am a deluded fantasist. Even though, in my own mind, the things that I do are all grounded in reality. So, it's very difficult to know what to put in paper to a judge, because I'm not allowed to go to a lawyer and get any kind of legal advice. When I go to a lawyer and try and get legal advice, they will tell me that my arguments are not legal arguments. And they will also take advantage of me and say things, oh, our fee is £500. And once you've given them £500, they say, oh no, we've changed our mind. It's now £3,000. Give us another £2,500. So, they lead you in, they make you pay money, and then they just keep making you pay more and more money, and they trap you like that. Do you understand what that kind of trickery?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the problem that I've already had in that country with their lawyers. That's how they treat people. So I've got two letters at the moment. I have one letter that is that gives the grounds and the fact that the notice isn't yet served. Then I have another letter which is extra information, which inquires as to at what point in time do I tell the court what my when do I ask the court for my costs and other things, and asking the court for a schedule of how we're going to proceed, because my costs are very substantial, £50,000 according to AI. And I have a problem trying to put it all together, because when you work with AI, you can say to AI, please, you keep the letter just like that, but add these extra concepts. And all the time you're having to translate from a foreign language into English with Google Translate. And it just keeps changing the story. And I keep having to go back to the AI and said, I told you, AI. I said, don't change the information, just add these extra bits. And AI says back to you, yes, that's okay, I can do that. But it doesn't. It starts changing the facts of the story, which you've already told it not to change. So it's very difficult to use AI to construct a letter to the court. And at the end of it all, you don't even know if the AI has created something that anybody's going to believe. No, I think I've explained to you my situation.
Okay.
Sorry, Ross. And the reason I've said that to you is because this is the process that I'm going through at the moment, and I have got this weekend to get this letter finalised and sent out to the court in the recorded delivery. And I just want to ask you: do I sound deluded, or do I sound credible?
I'm not quite sure what you would like me
I
to
want
do.
the truth. I just want the truth. If I'm sounding deluded, that's going to help me a lot, because then I know I should not send this letter.
I can't give an opinion, Howie, about that.
Because often
And I can't advise
I
you
have
about the letter.
I have phoned the Samaritans before, and they just some of them people will just put the phone down on me and say I'm talking total nonsense. And so I just want to, on this particular incident, today I've got this letter to put out, and I'm just very, very concerned that the courts can use whatever I send them to persecute me, because one, they might not like disabled people, and two, they might decide that my letter is a deluded fantasy and is legally completely wrong. So I just don't know how to get something across to people, because I can't get any legal advice.
I'm only getting like a snapshot in time for your situation. You've been really detailed about everything that you've been through. But I can't make a decision about your mental capacity.
No, I'm just saying that
Or
I have two issues that I don't want to make. I don't want to sound to the court that I am a deluded fantasist. That's one of my concerns. And the other concern I have is the court might actually persecute disabled people, because to provide adjustments to disabled people costs time and money. And one of the arguments for not being prosecuted is that you have to save the court time and money. And so there is a kind of a conflict of interest between actually getting justice and complying with the law. There's this problem, and I don't want the courts just to say we haven't got time for this disabled person, we haven't got the resources. Just find them and get them out of here. Oh, you know, Roz, do you know why it's so helpful me to speak to you?
no, you tell me.
Fine. Because speaking to you, I've just realised that there's always the Court of Appeal.
Yes, absolutely.
So the extra concept that I can put into my letter is to make sure that I receive my notification, that my notification that I cannot get my costs, and I cannot, and or I'm going to be fined, or whatever it is, whatever the notice is, that I have to go to the Court of Appeal.
Well, there you are. You've worked out for yourself some options.
Yeah, but the difficulty is that I'll ask them, if they're not going to support me, to please let me know the address of the Court of Appeal and the form number that I need to pursue the matter further.
Okay, I'm sure you'll be able to find that on Google.
No, not Google. What I would have to do is I would have to produce my final draft letter, and I will just say, and I'll put some areas in kind of brackets or something like that, and I say AI, please check the areas marked in brackets and let me know if this is something that they would be able to respond to, because I need to I can't find the right words, Ross, but I just I'm at the same time as speaking to you, I'm trying to think about how I can communicate these concepts to AI, which I use as a form of support for my brain, which I wouldn't be able to do on my own. I wouldn't be able to research things on Google, as you suggested, but I would be able to deal with it using AI.
Okay.
But the AI is a bit iffy because you never know if it's producing facts, correct legal facts, correct medical facts, or producing something like which would be like a drama, something made up. You see, AI can equally make something up, but make it sound real. There's an issue there. But well, anyway, it's been very helpful talking to you, Roz.
Okay. You must be very tired now.
Yes, I've got an extra concept in my mind which I didn't have at the beginning of the call, which is to check the if I'm not going to be supported by them, then the direction I should be to please make sure that if they're not going to support me, that they should be clear that they're not going to support me and direct me to the Court of Appeal.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well it seems like you've got a clear kind of course of action, which is really good. I'm glad that calling has been helpful for you.
Yes.
I wish you all the very best.
I will
Situation.
I will make my official notice according to the minimum requirements, and I will put a note at the bottom, an addendum. Please also, external to these basic facts that you require, send me this additional information. And but that's it. So that whoever's processing the fine might not. It might be dealt with by a different department and not by the people. So I can put a barrier between some things there. Thank you, Roz.
All right, Howie, take care.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye-bye. Thank you.